So my condition was the text-only condition, and I think the biggest benefit of having only the text is that there wasn't necessarily sensory overload. You were able to focus on all of the words that the politicians were actually saying, and it allowed you to kind of process all of the actual arguments as opposed to just focusing on visuals. And it also made all the interruptions a little more like salient because you could actually see them written out on the page, which was kind of unsettling. I think the worst part was that you knew that you were relying solely on mental images because when you're just reading words, it requires a lot of effortful processing. And this means that you're just using heuristics to kind of judge the candidates. And so I had these symbols in my mind of what a Democrat and a Republican was. And I think my biggest fear was that I would be wrong or that I would be reading too much into the actual words and not necessarily understand the tone of what was going on.
Okay, and so I had the visual condition. So one of the pros was that with the visual, I got the main points based on the limited amount of text that was on the screen. So I wasn't distracted by minute details with all the talking. But then one of the cons with that same point was that I couldn't get all the minute details, so I couldn't follow the argument-specific points. And then also, because it was just visual, I was mainly focused on the images, so I paid more attention to the appearances of the politicians rather than what they were saying. And it's also a form of hot media, just watching the visual, because it required little participation from me, the viewer. And also, I related it to the concept of repleteness because pictures have more words, have more dimensions than words. So looking at the visual, I got more information than just reading the text and having to effortfully process that.
Yeah, so the condition that I had actually was just audio. Because of this, I put more of a focus on the tone and the speaker's accents. I also couldn't see the speakers' faces, so I relied on symbols of stereotypes of Republicans and Democrats to create an image in my mind of what was happening on the screen. So because of that, Ben had a Southern accent, so I automatically kind of assumed that he was uneducated and was less prepared than Simon, solely based off of this superficial fact. And then also listening to the audio was a form of hot media because there was a lot of information being thrown at me vocally, such as the accents, the tone, the information, and having to create a mental image with this information didn't take much participation just because it was a lot of entertainment.
And I had the audiovisual condition, and I thought the main pro was that it was pretty entertaining, and I got the most complete information with both the audio that contained most of the factual information and the visual that gave me kind of the context of the interviews. The con was that it was really difficult to focus on the information that was being presented in the audio because the visuals were so distracting, particularly the photo of Representative Ryan that wasn't really related to what they were talking about. And then when Ben got up and left at the end of the interview, it was very distracting. This was also an example of hot media with a lot of sensory data to sort through. And I didn't really have to process the information in the video. I could just sort of watch it more as entertainment. And because of this, I paid more attention to the pictures than I did to the words in the audio.